We buy real teams with fake money to win imaginary points.
That's it. Welcome to the Fantasy Formula One podcast, where we use fake money to buy real F1 teams to win fake money. That works. I am Paul. That is Ben.
How's it going?
And this is after the Spanish Grand Prix. And we have a lot to discuss in the Fantasy Formula One world.
Let's start with the obvious.
Okay.
Verstappen wins first place, and it feels like home.
It does.
But here's where it gets interesting. Norris continues his ascendance to getting comfortable on the podium. But then 3 and 4, it's not red.
Nope.
It's light green. It's mint green. It's Mercedes in the 3rd and 4th position. So that's interesting in and of itself, because we're seeing a steady climb in performance. We're seeing a lot less passive aggressive trash talk from Lewis Hamilton about his own team. So that's so the discussion begins with, is Mercedes back?
And if you look at the scoreboard, you have to think that they are. Right?
Yeah.
I'm very clear, but my track record is very clear that I thought Mercedes was out, Ferrari is a team to beat. So, Ferrari is a team to have, Mercedes is out, and unless Mercedes gets their stuff together, it's not worth worrying about them.
And it turns out they are getting their stuff together.
It turns out they're getting their stuff together, because they had 66 fantasy points in Spain, and they had 74 fantasy points in Canada. And before that, it was 46, 54, 40, 62 in China, 20 and 28, and then all from a low in Australia at a negative 17, and then they were bouncing around in the low 40s, high 30s before then.
Yeah.
And so this last week, I was huge into, this is Ferrari's downtick. They're going to pick it back up. They're going to get all their stuff on, all their shoes on straight, and they're going to run.
Which could still happen.
They
scored a collective 5th and 6th, and this is after their double DNF week. So they're going through a couple rough weeks. However, I don't think it's anything to panic about, except that Mercedes is showing a steady trend of improvement week to week to week, and it's not a fluke, because you have good drivers in the seats, and so that just means the cars are getting better.
And this is the week, like I said last week, where it's like, hey, this is the week because Ferrari's going to take off, and this is last week you can afford them. Their price went up a little bit, but this week, going into this next race, is the week that Mercedes and Ferrari are both evenly priced. Drivers and constructors are with a couple tenths of a million together.
Yeah, well, and that's you bring up an interesting point. We were talking about the bargain bin pickup of Ferrari and also Mercedes. I think you still have an opportunity with Mercedes, but I think you got to act fast, because more than any other team from a price standpoint, Mercedes as a constructor and George Russell and Lewis Hamilton each went up by $0.3 million in value. Everyone else who improved only improved by 0.1, and then a couple drivers every week drop a little bit in value, but they rose by the most significant margin by far.
Yeah.
So if they continue to put up the numbers, if they continue to do what they are doing, that price is only going to go up. So if you need a solid secondary constructor, this might be your last week to be able to afford one that doesn't then represent a huge drop in points with if we're talking Aston Martin and below.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a very valid point, because and as soon as the points are zero sum, right? There's only a certain amount of points we've well covered.
Yeah.
So as soon as we feel that McLaren is solid in there, Red Bull, as soon as Perez has a great day, they get Boku points. We're going to talk about that in a second. I've been a dissenting voice for the team Red Bull, and as people online have mentioned, the numbers were very interesting this week. But keeping it in Ferrari and McLaren, you have McLaren and Red Bull top 2, then Ferrari and Mercedes. Which do you go for? Because Ferrari has been doing great, but they seem to be on the back foot a little bit. They had the double DNF. That wasn't an ultra strong showing. But is what we're seeing now Mercedes truly doing well? Or is it the fact that Ferrari is still working out some of their issues and they're going to be back at it? Because if you listen to Mercedes, they finally figured it all out. What they've had a hard time working with, they finally sorted it all. Here they go. They're off to the races. Is that on the surface of it? And does it translate on the surface of it? Is it true? And does it translate into fantasy points?
I think it's a little soon to say in terms of Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have faith in Ferrari, because up until this point in the season, it's been always a bridesmaid, never a bride with them. However, lately, if Red Bull is not in their way, it has been McLaren who's been edging them out to take a higher spot. And now look out, here comes Mercedes doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So the field's getting a little more crowded now, and it makes it a lot harder to say definitively, oh no, this is the team you should stick with.
Yeah.
It's tougher when you've got multiple good options. And do I think Mercedes is that yet? No. As your top driver or your top constructor, but I think they are headed in that direction.
I agree
in a meaningful way.
And here's a little weight. No, the old scales that you put weights and balances on. And whatever. The weight on the side of the scale that is pro Mercedes over Ferrari is, and we were talking about this, offline, is that Ferrari has a lot of infighting. Ferrari is, those two people don't like each other, and maybe the Mercedes drivers don't like each other as well, but they keep it under wraps. Lewis Hamilton's going off to greener pastures.
Sure.
And, George Russell's happy that he's, being the guy in the front. So they kind of have that naturally worked out.
Yeah.
Where it seems like Ferrari, I'd have to, as we discussed, I have to go back and rewatch that part to kind of see what went on. I know they're on two different tire strategies at the end, but kind of see what went on with Ferrari, because they were barking. It's on the memes. You should all check that out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's they both of them want to be the guy. And again, obviously if you have a team and your drivers don't both want to be the guy, that's a problem. However, these guys are, they're competing with each other. They're not working cooperatively.
Yeah.
My question, and this is not a fantasy points analysis question, so I'm sorry, but
no, that's fine.
Will that problem be solved when Lewis Hamilton's wearing that Ferrari red? Because he's still the way he answers questions, he is so frustrated. He's got that drought of winning after being such a dominant force for so many years. The guy still wants it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he's in Ferrari, what's Leclerc's role? What's his role? Are they going to cooperate any better?
And my initial reaction to that is spoken like somebody who, like a true non-Formula One driver, right? Like, I'm obviously not an F1 driver. In my head, Ferrari, and we'd have to go back and look at the histories and see how long it's been since Ferrari won a driver's championship and how long they won a constructor's championship. It's been a long time because they made a big deal out of the last time Ferrari won a race, right? So I would say if you're Ferrari, and if it's purely all about the wins and the dubs and stuff and the points and stuff like that, they're bringing on Hamilton to win the Constructors' Championship next year or the year after while he's there, because he's nearing the end of his tenure. Allegedly, who knows, right? Hello, Fernando Alonso and all that.
Oh, sure.
But my thought is they're bringing him in, and if it's push comes to shove, they're going to go with Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc has to be okay with this because they're bringing in a 7-time champion,
and he will have more years on the back.
He'll have more years in the back
after Hamilton leaves.
So but to that point, there has to be a lot of good faith and understanding between Leclerc.
Yep.
Because if they're bringing in some dude who has all the experience, and they're bringing in, they allegedly are bringing in the sorcerer from Red Bull.
Newey.
Newey. At least,
no. I thought Ferrari said no to.
Oh, did they? Maybe I might be behind on my. Don't take that to the bank yet.
No,
I might get behind on my thing.
Looking at my resume here, I've gotten to work with a lot of teams, but never Ferrari. And he kind of floated that out into the universe, and then I think there was a fairly definitive no for Ferrari.
Okay. Well, that's good to go. Okay, cool. Because I was thinking, man, as soon as if they did get him, they get Newey, and then they get Lewis Hamilton. This obviously they're stacking it for him. But as soon as I think that Lewis Hamilton goes to Ferrari, and just in time for them to try and squeeze everything they can out of the 2025, because how many years is Hamilton going to be at?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay, we have to look into that.
But that absolutely matters in terms of what that chemistry is going to look like, because Hamilton to Ferrari is not Alonso to Aston Martin.
True.
Aston Martin, I think Alonso's like, you know what? I still get to drive an F1 car into my 40s.
Yeah,
I'll never find another job like that. I'm going to drive the hell out of this car, and then I'll still be in this world when I get out. They've got a role for me once I'm done. No, but Hamilton's like, no, I got to win it.
I got to win it one more time, and I think he will. I think he's going to go to Ferrari. They're going to figure out. They're going to squeeze during the first half of 25. They're going to do the best they can with the car. They're going to bring in a couple upgrades, fine, but then as soon as it becomes clear, if it ever becomes clear in 2025 that Ferrari will not win the constructor and the drivers will not win the drivers' championship,
Yep.
they're going to pull the funding, start putting it into 2026, and set up with both of these top-tier drivers to try and win a championship in 26 or 27.
And then
That would be my guess.
Hamilton steps away and then focuses on his movie production company.
Hey, yeah.
Well,
just know
wait, you've heard about that though, right?
I didn't.
Okay, so he's got all of his other enterprises outside of F1 because the guy's got some money.
Yeah, got F1 money.
But his company is working. His production company is working with another major studio on an F1 movie that comes out next year, starring Brad Pitt.
Oh, is that Lewis Hamilton's production company?
Yeah.
Oh,
so that comes out next year, and it's about the introduction of a new constructor and a driver fallen from glory who I'm sure will come back.
That's awesome!
Either win it all or die,
sure,
or something like that.
That's straight down Brad Pitt's.
Oh, at
right?
This age too, yeah,
right.
So,
that's so cool. And I didn't realize that was his production company.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense as to why something is so big and they're doing it so strong. You know?
For sure. So,
gotcha.
Yep.
That's man.
So he's got plenty to keep. him busy
so he's got plenty.
Done.
Yeah, but he wants to get it one more time in the sun. He wants to try it, and it works with Ferrari.
Yeah.
So I think Charles Leclerc is going to take a step back. Not step back. He's still going to push 100, but he's accepting the fact that Lewis Hamilton's coming in for them to pull all the info they can from him, and then it's going to be him going forward with whatever young gun they have.
Gotcha.
In 27 or 28 or whenever Lewis Hamilton steps down.
That was a good answer. I like that.
So back before we move on from it, Mercedes or Ferrari. Because I have a team that's Ferrari heavy with as Ferrari and Mercedes. Actually, let me bring it up. I don't know why we have this recording going, don't we? Maybe it's right. Oh, it's on. No, I guess I don't have it. I guess it's on my other because I have two accounts with my other teams
right.
we've talked about, so it must be on the other one. But so I'm going to use this week. I'm going to use my Limitless on my team 1 and my team 1 and my team 3. And so without going too much into a build, actually we'll go through it later because that's going to be getting totally off on the wrong thing before we go there. Next question, Red Bull or McLaren? Because got it, Sergio Perez, he got 8th, but they got all sorts of points. That was the big thing I want to talk about here. So if we look at Red Bull Racing's points, all right, are you plugged in over there?
I am not.
Oh, hang on. This is going to be really cool. I'll have to edit this one out. Or not. You guys just get to see us figure out.
This is how the magic happens here. Here's the tough thing. The way the point spread is, both in real F1 points and in fantasy, is there is so much more value placed on winning. And so every step away you move from the podium, the point drop is so significant, So if you look at, unfortunately, F1 doesn't have the fantasy point totals from week to week like they do with the regular race.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the regular race results, Verstappen gets 25 points for first place, and then Perez gets 4 points for 8th. Norris gets 19 points for second, and Piastri gets 6 points for 7th place for a total of 25 points. So Verstappen and Perez at 1st and 8th still total out more than 2nd and 7th.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Yeah. So
it pays ultra to be in the top.
Right. So when you're saying Red Bull versus McLaren, are you talking constructor?
I'm talking
only?
Constructor only, and here's the reason why. So here, you see it, right?
I do now.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Sweet. So if you look at Red Bull, right, they started out the season in the 80s, in the 90s, 30,
right,
100s, in the low hundreds, in the nicely low hundreds, 80s, 68, 25, and then in Spain they were at 82.
Correct.
Looking at all, so they got 29 points for race positions, 12 points for qualifying positions. Those are purely the drivers.
Yep.
They get both drivers in Q3. That's 10 points of bonus. Race position gained or lost, again, that's drivers. Fastest pit stop is a team. That's 20 points total. That's another 10 points. So that's 20 points total. Another 5 for fastest pit stop, and that's 25. So, and then the overall race bonus is 12.
Right.
So 25 minus 82 minus 25. That'd be if it was 50. That'd be 50. 57. I don't know.
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't following along directly with the math because my foot got caught in something.
Oh, so
but no, we're good.
And this is why this is an independent podcast, everybody, because it's awesome.
It's gritty.
So it's gritty,
real,
it's real,
you know.
and in the end, we're just talking about F1 because we love it. And where is
but to answer your question here, right now it is not. No one really raises an eyebrow when Max Verstappen wins a race.
Correct.
So he is still a dominant force. He's going to be somewhere on the podium. So this comes down to your faith in Sergio Perez to be somewhere in the periphery, because if he can be somewhere in the periphery, as long as Max is at the top, Perez is a solid contributor to that point, to an already good point total.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Perez? Because that's your answer to whether you want.
Yeah,
I
guess. And I don't. He finished 8th.
Yeah.
All right, and I get it. Like, they had 25 points in constructor bonuses. McLaren had fastest lap, which is 20. Raced both drivers in Q3, which is 10. So they had a total of 20 points in bonus as well.
Right.
McLaren's putting up more points.
But how often has Perez gotten to Q3?
He doesn't.
Right.
Exactly. And so he just has in the last couple of races. And so to bring it on back to your question of is it faith in Perez, I don't see how we can have too much faith in him.
Right.
In fantasy land. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, is he a strong driver for the team? Yeah, and there's a lot that goes on behind the teams. I'm behind the scenes. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying for the fantasy points, he isn't putting it up.
And that's where this gets so challenging, because before you were talking, Ferrari, Mercedes, and where I wrestle with that is immediately I jump to, well, look at their point totals. There's a multi-100 point gap between Ferrari and Mercedes.
Yeah, what is that?
But
gap?
ultimately,
it's 430 versus 582.
So I'm sorry, 150
points, which is notable.
Right. Unfortunately, though, again, so I'm an emotional guy, and that does not serve me well here, because I see that and I go, obviously Ferrari, but no. It's about the week-to-week performance. It's what have you done for me lately, and it's strictly that. If Mercedes is on the rise, if they can consistently place above Ferrari at this point, your fantasy game is week to week. You are completely changing out drivers. You're not sticking with one team and saying, rah red. You're saying which guy will perform the best for me here right now. Mercedes outclassed Ferrari with both of their drivers, and it does not show any signs of that not being the case, or them not at least being as competitive as Ferrari in the immediate future. So save some money. Get some Mercedes.
Go Mercedes,
and then bump up your lower level drivers, or lock in two solid constructors.
Yeah, know what you can, and get the one thing that I'm going to go ahead and make this statement on is get Lando Norris, because Max Verstappen's at 30.8 million. Lando Norris is 26 even, and he's gone up 0.2.
Yeah,
since last week.
At the start of the season, he was 24 point something. So he's consistently climbed.
If you have him on your team, be careful about getting rid of him. So then if you have, on all my teams, as we can see on the screen, I am McLaren Ferrari. Do I diversify and get rid of, for example, this team 3 that I want to use Limitless with. And here's a cool trick, which we went over last week. Limitless also has a wildcard feature, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as you make your change to a team and you go negative 20 points, you can go and apply Limitless. That debt gets erased. You put on the people you want, and it revert back to whoever you changed it to. So we're talking about Mercedes. We're talking about getting 2 good drivers, and in place of 1 Max Verstappen or 1 Lando Norris. So would I come in here to manage the team? Do you get rid of Max Verstappen? Do you get rid of Ferrari?
I see.
And then play around with everything else. We're going to get Merc.
Well, let's take a look at that real quick. Can you jump over to my account?
I think I can look at your teams. I don't think I can actually edit your teams.
Look at my teams from this past week, because I did that. I went full McLaren for one team.
Let me find it.
Went full McLaren for one team, and then on my other team, I went Mercedes and Russell, and then Ferrari and Leclerc.
Okay, so newbie alpha?
Correct.
Yeah.
No, not Newbie Alpha. Let's look at
Dragon Fruit, Stathams.
Dragon Fruit and the Stathams.
Okay, we'll start with Stathams since they have
Okay.
a lower point total.
So the Stathams, I tried something a little bit different. I misspoke. But I went Carlos Sainz for one of my drivers, and I had Ferrari as a constructor. And then I went George Russell as a driver, and I have Mercedes as my other constructor. So two solid constructors, two solid drivers as well. My point total was 178. Now, if you look over at Red Bull Dragon Fruit, I went with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri and McLaren. So I went full McLaren, but as a result, I couldn't afford another solid constructor. So the best I could afford was Aston Martin, and they got me very little. But my point total was still 204.
And you 2x Norris.
I 2x Norris, so he alone got me 102 points. So that's tough because I don't think it definitively disproves the idea of having two solid constructors, but it does speak to right now the importance of Norris and McLaren.
Yeah. No, and I think here I can jump on that similar because
actually to the point of Mercedes being solid, if I had dropped Piastri and gone with Russell, who I think is cheaper right now.
Let me look back at that week. There's Russell.
That would have netted me an extra 17 points.
Yeah,
so,
it would have.
Yeah, so right now Russell's 21.1 million, and how much is
last week? He got 27 points. He has 175 points total right now.
Yeah, how much is Oscar Piastri?
Oscar Piastri. Let's go back.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is what I'm here for. Let's go ahead and manage the team. Go to the drivers. Did I miss him?
Yeah,
there it did. Oscar Piastri.
Okay, so Piastri is about
21.7.
Half a million more expensive than Russell, and Russell's putting up some better numbers.
Yeah, at least in the last couple of weeks.
Correct.
Which is why we're here. You know?
But and like we always say though, you only need 2 points to make to identify a data trend.
Yeah.
Is it going to be reliable? No, but we're seeing a rise in Mercedes that looks like it could be sustainable.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is it worth it now? Is it worth it getting now? Because as soon as they start doing better, because then have it that if you did a team, let's look at it that way.
Okay.
Instead of predicting the future, you just now did it where as we talked about, you had all of McLaren with a solid constructor, but not the best.
Sure.
And then you went with both Mercedes and Ferrari with a top driver.
Correct.
And the Mercedes and the Ferrari with a top driver scored 40 points less than the other one, than the McLaren main.
Yes.
Right. Is that a fluke, or how are you extrapolating that out to next week?
Well, so the definitives, if there are any in this game, is Lando Norris is they are who we thought they were. Like he is.
Yeah.
He is exactly what you want him to be. He's a consistent contender for the very top.
Yes.
And like you said, he's cheaper than Max. So McLaren is your solid constructor as well. I coming away from this week though, I would consider dropping Piastri in favor of.
What do you think?
That's the thing. Piastri's not a bad.
He just had a rough. He had a rough qualifying.
He did
over the weekend.
So he only got you 10 points for costing over $21 million.
And for anybody who didn't watch qualifying, I'm going to paraphrase, but he exceeded track limits once, and he had a really solid time that negated, and then he something happened. He got a tire off the road or whatever, and he lost time, and so he just had a really bad qualifying. So he started. Where did he start at? He started. Let me look in Spain. He qualified 10th.
So I'll say this:
finished 7th.
If we're right now we're playing prospect or suspect with just a different coat of paint on it.
That's true.
So
that's a good point.
I'm gonna say he's a prospect. I think he didn't have the best week last week.
Agreed.
So
if he's prospect, does that put him over Red Bull? Because for us, Perez is suspect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. So I would stick with Piastri. It's a 6 and 1, half a dozen in the other. Did this week Russell just happened to get you 17 more points if you had him instead.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't feel bad going either way, going for either driver. I think if you can afford them as a second solid driver, life is good.
Yeah. No, I agree. And when it comes to the McLaren the Ferrari versus Mercedes, did we ever land on Because they're both prospect right now. For me, they're both very prospect.
Well, so let's do this. We've got a race here in 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Ferrari this week.
Okay.
If they have a third, if mediocre to off week, I can see myself jumping ship.
Okay.
But
I can see that.
But I want to see what happens this week. I'm staying with Ferrari this week.
And for McLaren versus Red Bull Racing, for me, is because of that $30 million. Sorry, so McLaren's 25, and Red Bull is 30. So for that $5 million, there's not enough meat on the bone for Red Bull Racing to justify doing that and losing out on a good driver, losing out on another constructor.
And that's exactly it. Norris is 26, McLaren is 25.7. Verstappen is 30, and Red Bull is 30. You're saving yourself $9 million just from one driver and one constructor. That gives you a lot more to play with in terms of your mid-tier drivers, and that's the kind of flexibility you don't want to walk away from. So at this point, I'd go Norris.
No, I agree. I still have Max there just because I can't not have a team with Max Verstappen on it.
Sure.
And my OMG Red is not doing too bad. So okay, so that was we talked about Ferrari versus Ferrari versus Mercedes. We talked about Red Bull, and we talked about and we talked about brain farting, coffee. It's been a thing. So the next thing one of the things I do want to talk about is doing limitless and tokens and stuff this week.
Oh, yeah,
because
that's right.
If for those of you who listened to the full podcast last week,
thank you.
I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. One of the cockamamie idea that I came up with, if I can say cockamamie on a podcast,
it's controversial, but I'll allow it.
Is that this week being the Austrian Grand Prix? It has basically I came up with that the fewer number of turns and equals the more number of DRS zones, and that equates to strength for your Max Verstappen, your Lando Norris, your Red Bull Racing, and your McLaren.
Yep.
Like that equates to strength for those. Last week there was 14 turns and 2 DRS zones. Max Verstappen was back on form. So was Lando Norris. This coming week in Austria is 10 turns and 3 DRS zones.
Okay.
So, and this is the last track. This is the fewest number of turns in, and this is a sprint race.
Right. So here's the question, though. Earlier in the season, harkening back to last season, this is where Mercedes would get hurt, is in the straightaways.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's a lot of turns, they're keeping up with other constructors. But then as soon as you got a lot of straightaways, they're just getting smoked.
Okay.
Have they overcome that? Because now you're identifying a track with some of the fewest turns. And I know that this is not the talking point right now. I know the talking point is application of chips and using your bonuses to their full strength, given that it's a sprint weekend. But is this a liability for Mercedes?
And I would love to have a larger sample size than the last 2 races.
Sure.
Yeah. The previous 2 races were 14 and 2.
Oh, there we go. So
for both of them.
This is what we can look at. This is smart.
Yeah. So the previous 2 races were 14 and 2, and Mercedes did well,
which we have identified as a lighter number of turns relative to some throughout the season.
Exactly. So the previous 3 races had 19 turns each with 1 and 3 DRS zones.
Okay.
Right?
So they have done progressively better, even with less turns. So it stands to reason that straightaways are no longer the enemy of Mercedes.
I do see how the data I have, the numbers I've completely created, doing my own math, do support that. And the litmus test will be the next race at the British Grand Prix, where there's 2 DRS zones but 18 turns. As soon as we go to that one, then we're going to see if how much the turns really do matter.
Gotcha.
And maybe this means something, and maybe my numbers mean nothing.
Okay.
But that doesn't save us, because the next week, the round 11 in Austria is the last sprint race that has this many turns and this many DRS zones. The next one you have is round 19 that has looks like 20 turns and 2 DRS, and then round 21 has 15 turns and 2 DRS. And my issue with getting them that late in the year is that at that point, as soon as the people are losing or as soon as the people are winning, they might tend to stratify out and not try and stop putting upgrades in and stuff like that. So for this, what do you think about me using both my limitless chips this week in Austria? Because it's a hard gamble. If the numbers I think are true, then it'll do it. And then the question comes down to, well, it's Red Bull and it's a McLaren for your two constructors.
But it's like I said though. I think you've got too many good choices right now. It's not like, there's really only one or two guys, and we can normally never afford them if we don't want to compromise elsewhere.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you could go either Ferrari driver. You could go. Yeah, I mean you're going to go Max.
Yeah.
But then do you look at Hamilton versus versus Sainz or Leclerc?
Yeah. Or do you wait on using the limitless for later on in the season just so you know who's good and who's not?
Right. Yeah.
Because this might be the race where suddenly, freaking, and if this happens, I'm going to feel like an idiot, but where a couple of the Ferraris and a couple of the McLarens and a couple of the Red Bulls all decide to tap into each other, and everybody who uses, limitless is now going negative.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going limitless, so let's just come up with a driver roster. So you're going to go Max.
Yeah, here, let me pull it up so that way we can have a visual aid. So here is team number 1.
Yep.
That is the lead team. So for anybody uninitiated, your team 1 is the team that you can win you can actually win prizes from F1.
Right.
Right. So that's why this is the
your
team.
Truly rated team.
This is my true team here. So let me go ahead and
clear the roster.
Clear the roster and let's do it.
Okay, so we know Max Verstappen's a thing.
But I think I'm going to need to actually apply the limitless chip before I can do that. So apply chip, limitless, continue. Are you really sure? Yeah, I am. All right, here we are. So let's clear the roster. Nope, come on. Doot. Okay.
All right.
So limitless. Who do we have for constructors? Red Bull and McLaren?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Just based on because like I said, the last 3 races has been 66, 57, 56, consistently in the 50s and 60s, right? Going back as far as China, they were in 43, and Japan, they were 39. And then if you look at Ferrari, 40s, negative 16, fine. And then 68, 51, 79, 74. Oh, I don't know. Japan 59, 92. Again, it's recency bias or overall point numbers.
That is the
right now. We're going to go to McLaren, and I can adjust it pending how they do in practice.
Absolutely.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so now we look at our drivers. We're going Max, obviously.
Max, for sure.
Going Lando.
Lando without a doubt.
Okay, so now you got 3 options here.
And
I think you have to go Leclerc.
I think you do too. Soft on signs.
He's too consistent. And he's up there. And again, as far as points go, you can't do much. I mean, he's number 3 on points for the year. Oh, we never talked about this. Lando Norris has more fantasy points than Leclerc as of this week. Look at that.
Oh shoot, you're right.
Yeah, but anyway,
but we're keeping both.
Leclerc is still a solid 3rd place.
Mm-hmm.
And
completely agree. For the fantasy points,
yeah.
Absolutely. I view that as them being neck and neck and how dominant Lando's been.
Right. And I've said it all season. I would much rather watch and root for Carlos Sainz in a race, but I'm going to trust Charles Leclerc way more.
Yes.
So
yes.
So I'd go Charles Leclerc. Now Mercedes improvements get interesting.
Yeah.
So do you go Hamilton maybe?
Because George Russell did well.
He did.
So he got 27 points last week, and Lewis Hamilton got 29. 32 in Canada for Lewis Hamilton, 27. So if we're going just based on this recency bias, we can't look at the total number of points. We're looking at how they did the last 2 weeks.
Right. Conventional wisdom says, why in the world are you passing up Sainz for Hamilton or Russell?
Yes.
But this is not a conventional world that Fantasy F1 lives in.
Completely agree.
So yeah, I think you go Hamilton. Do you now go back to Sainz, or do you go Russell?
So George Russell, let's look at the last 2 weeks. 27 in Spain, 27 in Canada. Then let's go at Sainz.
I mean, he's got that
negative DNF.
Yeah, because Ferrari had their double DNF.
And for this, honestly, I'm going to go for Russell if I have to pick between those two.
You can pick anybody, and
I'm picking Russell.
Double Ferrari. I mean, a double Mercedes.
So let's look back at Carlos Sainz then. 16 and negative 16.
Well, but that's the thing. I don't think you're wrong. It just.
But is that the world we live in?
Right. It's like if you're right-handed, this is what it feels like to do normal things, but with your left hand instead.
Right.
You know, it's like you're trying to brush your teeth and you're getting toothpaste all over your face right now. But it still makes sense to do.
Oh gosh,
You're just gonna look like a moron if it.
Oh, right. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what's going to happen if, as soon as, well, first, and this is a interesting thing. Let's look at this build up real quick, right? Because, like, this is the build that makes sense.
And look at last year. He was the number 2 driver all year. And then for the first 5 weeks of the season this year, he was still solid. It's again, it's what it. Yeah.
And if we have Red Bull Red Bull Racing as a constructor, then it makes sense to also get both of their drivers. However, the 25 points Red Bull got. So between these two teams, just last week, there were 45 points from McLaren and Red Bull for their bonuses.
Yeah.
So that's why we have them on.
Well, here's the question:
it's in spite of Sergio Perez.
How does Sergio Perez do during sprint races? Do we have that information somewhat readily available?
Yeah, we do. Let's check. Take a look and see here. I bet. So the other sprint races were Miami and China. So Sergio Perez, we're going to look we're not going to worry about placements or anything. We're just going to look at the number. So China, he did 40.
So he must have done well.
On the sprint. And then United States, 30.
Okay, not bad.
No. And then let's look at Oscar Piastri.
China
12. United States 22.
So Perez is more solid on sprint weekends.
And George Russell, China 27, United States 10. So technically, if we're looking at just and this is why you have to be careful how you use statistics.
Right. Oh no, yeah.
Right, and this. Like, this is why I've had this conversation where it's like, well, what do we look at? Do we look at how well he did before in sprint races? In which case, Perez is our guy. Do we look at just the last 2 races in general?
Yeah. With
all that, then in that case, it's Russell. And then if we look at it through the lens of just sanity checking, really, we're gonna have Hamilton and Russell on our. We're not going to have Carlos Sainz. We're not going to have Oscar Piastri. We're not going to have Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
Jeesh. So I am going to, for this, put Russell on.
Okay.
And
but because also, look at those previous sprint races. How was Mercedes as a constructor doing? Not great. Things have
absolutely changed. Let's look at it, see how Mercedes was doing during those sprint races. So United States, they did 40, and China, they did 62.
Okay.
Shoot, let's look at how Red Bull was doing. In United States, 85, China 126. So there's the bias right there.
Right.
Like we look at nowadays. Oh, and actually, that's kind of an interesting point, right? How now we're like, oh my gosh, they did 60 points for a constructor. That's wonderful. Can you imagine in China if we were like, another team got 60 points as a constructor? We'd be like, dude, that's horrible.
Yeah.
60 points in a constructor is no good. And now suddenly, as soon as Red Bull has 2-3 weeks in the 40 or below, we're like, wow, 60, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, man.
All right. So again, I don't think you're wrong. It just feels weird.
It feels weird. But that's going to be it. I'm going to I actually wonder.
Yeah, if we ever make a T-shirt, I think we got to put that in the running for a slogan. I don't think you're wrong. It just feels weird.
I don't think you're wrong. It just feels weird, man. All right, we're going to continue and lock it in. Do we want all of this limitless activated?
Do it.
Confirm change. There's my team number 1, limitless activated.
Wow.
We'll see how it goes. And I do reserve the right to change this, especially pending practices.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah.
But
that's a lot of mint green.
It's an awful lot of mint green. And I'm going to hold off on pulling the trigger on this because, so for my team 3, and we're getting near, so before we talk basic team sort of philosophies, what other topics, whatever things we have to discuss about what we're discussing, about these two, the constructors versus constructors, and then Verstappen or Norris?
I think we've kind of beaten that horse as much as we can. And again, so if we had to sum all of that discussion into a succinct point, it is that previous points don't get you new points.
That's that will be the next slogan.
Okay.
It's not right. It just feels weird, and previous points don't get you new points.
I mean, because what happened, but that's not what's happening today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, completely agree. And so so for my managed team for this one, that's a perfect segue into this because I have 3 changes that I can use on this team.
Okay.
So, and I'm not going to click save yet, but here's something I was toying around with while my daughter was taking a nap. Keep McLaren, drop Max,
Okay.
drop Logan.
That being said, Logan, he got you 1 point.
He got me a point.
Again,
he's still net positive, man.
His price keeps going down. But again, in fantasy world where nothing makes sense, don't be afraid of Logan Sargent.
Nope, I completely agree.
And look at this. He had impeded. Was it Lance Stroll?
Is that what it was?
He impeded somebody.
Yeah,
and he ended up getting a three place penalty on the grid. But since he was already P20, it didn't make. It
didn't matter
Guys,
at all.
He's untouchable. He's like, just keep giving me penalties. What are you going to do? I'm already P20. This is where I live.
So my idea is get rid of. Do that.
Okay, so again, though, I tried this with Ferrari and Mercedes, and again, I got 176 points, but so again, I don't mind the taste of the Kool-Aid here, but it didn't do what I thought it would.
Then, but as soon as your McLaren worked out so well, 4.9. Don't think I have enough for that. Let's go ahead and get rid of Hulkenberg. And that was my poor attempt at a German accent.
No, you got to go back to someone from Kick and someone from Williams in order to make this work.
Boom.
Yeah.
Think about that, because that's what you did, and that got 200 points.
That did.
So how many points did I get last race with these cats? I got Spain, Team 3, 198. So it's still close.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's
that just what killed me. That, man, these 2 weeks. Monaco, when both Haas got DNF'd, and Canada, when both Ferrari got DNF'd. That's what toasted me.
Gotcha.
But anyway, not here to complain. We're here to talk. I'm going to hold off. And the reason is because you want to go ahead and, if you're going to do any massive, if you're going to redo a team, you want to redo it before you hit the limitless, because that erases all the points that you've spent already. So I want to hold off. I'm sticking with my team 1. That's my ride or die. I'm sticking with that. But I just don't know if I want to adjust anything here. And I want to use my 3X chip for my team 2, but I don't have anybody go to be my second driver. So what I would need to do for team 2 is drop Ferrari, drop Ocon, and get Russell.
Interesting.
Ooh, but let's see. So what's the best? We talked about maybe getting Aston Martin, but that's 15. That's not enough to get.
Now you can't afford Russell or Piastri.
But there's Alpine. How'd Alpine do? Got 24 and 31.
Yeah, Ocon actually did good.
So then let's go to here. Dang it, what am I missing? 1 million.
Oh, okay.
So then here's what we're going to do. Yuki, Nico.
Draw.
There's 2 points. Let's just take it to the scoreboard and see what we got real quick.
What's Kevin? How's Kevin doing versus Nico Hulkenberg?
Kevin is at 47. Nico is at 40.
But lately, Nico's been more reliable, I thought. I would try this. Drop Kevin Magnussen.
Okay.
Pick up Lando Norris.
And here, we're just going to, since the idea behind this is I can completely re-hit it when I hit there. So let's go get Lando Norris.
Okay.
Okay.
And so now you still got 17 million to play with.
With here. 2 drivers. Yeah. So let's go ahead and head on down here. Let's go ahead and start with Joe Ganiu.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then who else for points?
9.7. Why not?
Got
you can start.
So,
you already have him.
You can get Pierre Gasly. That's an awful lot of Alpine.
It is. It is. As long as Pierre Gasly doesn't hit his buddies, you're okay.
But I just realized also this is my team 2. So I just realized I might goof that up. Yeah, so here's my team 2. I already used, I'm only applying my 3X chip.
Oh, I see.
So okay. I can't go nuts on that. So we'll still go ahead. We'll get rid of McLaren for Alpine, and then we're going to get rid of season points, the We're going to try and get rid of whoever the bottom is. Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Kevin Magnussen. Let's try and get rid of Hulkenberg and get somebody to do with 26.
Yeah, you can get him.
I can get him.
You can get
Lando Norris.
And you got 500,000 left.
And boom. And so this will be my 3X team, but I only spent 2.
So are you going 3X on land? I mean, you're going 3X on Lando.
I would absolutely go 3X on Lando.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we'll just use Alpine. So let me go continue. So 0 there. I'm going to apply a chip. 3X. Continue. Continue. On Lando. Continue. Confirm.
All right.
Boom. There we go.
Interesting.
Limitless 3X. And I'm going to hold off on this one because I want to make sure that if really I think McLaren and Ferrari they've been treating me well, and OMG Red here is
it's the Lab Rat team.
It's the Lab Rat team, but also I want to make sure that if all this completely falls apart, I did the math. All of my teams are in the top 1.5%.
Are you serious?
With one of my teams being in the top 1%.
Wow. Even after last week.
Even after last week with everything.
Painful.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and if anybody wants to know, last thing before we go, here is how you figure out what percentage your teams are in. Go ahead and go up to leagues and go to public leagues, go to starter leagues. And then here, so you're at 2.2 million. So I have the numbers down to a little bit more exact than that because one of my secondary account is for fun. I have one of my teams I always put at the bottom, which public leagues, starter leagues. So my team 1 in this other account, I purposely keep at the bottom just so I can do appropriate math. And that person is number 2284408. So there's basically 2.28 million teams. So you divide whatever your current ranking is by 2284408.
Yeah.
And that'll give you and then multiply by 100, and that'll give you what your percentile is, where and what percent you are.
Yep.
And when I did it, both of my dudes were in the top 1.5 because roughly every 22,000 people is 1%. So.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So real quick, also before we go, next week is the 12th race of a 24-race season.
Ooh!
So I think we need to each come up with some, based on the year so far, up with some kind of out of pocket predictions for the 2025 season.
Oh, okay.
So
what what's someone's? Let me think about it. So what are some that you have like out of pocket predictions for 2025?
Okay, off the top of my head,
yeah,
Williams will win a Grand Prix.
Ooh,
with Carlos Sainz as the.
Is he for sure going over there?
He is not for sure going over there. That's why I said out of pocket. Like
gotcha.
I'm connecting some lines that are far from connected yet.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna see a Williams win. All Vols is gonna all of his statistically based management style is finally gonna click, and you're gonna see Sainz win, just by a number of freak circumstances coming together.
Yeah.
Win a race for Williams.
I like that. Okay. I'll stick with his former Ferrari. I'm going to say, I'm going to say that Lewis Hamilton, P2 in Drivers' Championship behind Max Verstappen.
Ooh, interesting.
That Lewis Hamilton, because he would, and here's the basis for this, he would not go to Ferrari unless there was something groovy there.
That's true.
So he's got to see something with them.
Well, and that's the thing with the driver at his age, he's going to have so much more significant input and voice into the development of the car than most would.
Do I think it's going to be enough to dethrone Verstappen? No, I think Red Bull they're just too locked on right now. I think the magic, the Max Verstappen finishing 20 seconds ahead of everybody else, probably those days are gone, but I still think Max Verstappen is going to win, and I think next year it'll be a lot. I think Lewis Hamilton will have some growing pains. I think he's going to challenge Max towards the end, and I think he'll be a solid P2 in a constructor because Sergio Perez is staying there, and right now I don't think Sergio Perez is good. I think that next year that delta is just going to increase. And I think Lewis Hamilton is going to get right up in there.
Okay, so are you saying potentially then Max Verstappen driver championship, Ferrari constructor champion?
Ooh.
Because if Perez is on a downward trajectory and he's signed through next year, and we get kind of a mediocre driver 2 situation, but Max is still Max.
Ooh. It goes against because as soon as Sergio Perez starts finishing P2, my thought isn't, oh my gosh, he's finishing P2. I'm like, no, that checks. He should be. It's weird that he's not. And because he's finishing P8 on a track that his teammate's very good at, we're like scratching our heads going, what's going on? So will I be surprised if it's a hardcore Lewis Hamilton Drivers' Championship, a hardcore Red Bull Constructors' Championship with Sergio Perez finishing P3 and Lewis Hamilton finishing P2? That will not surprise me at all. Let me rephrase that. That will not surprise me if Sergio Perez is P2 or P3 in the Constructors' Championship next year. However, based on how I've seen, if we're making really strong predictions for next year, it would be is a non-zero possibility, and I think it'd be pretty gnarly if Lewis Hamilton still wins. Sorry, if Max Verstappen wins, Lewis Hamilton's a P2, and especially with Charles Leclerc, then it comes down to Charles Leclerc or Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
Scoreboard this year, Charles Leclerc. So yeah, I could see Ferrari winning the Constructors' Championship, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc being P2, P3 in Constructors, with Perez a very close 4.
Yeah.
Or maybe that 3, but a very close 4. And then with the delta between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen so narrow, the delta between Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez might be the deciding factor. And if Perez beats out Leclerc in 25, Red Bull, then Perez beats out Leclerc, then Red Bull wins. If Leclerc beats out Perez, then Ferrari wins the Constructors' Championship.
See, here's the thing. I think we're still getting stuck in last year because we never considered never considered McLaren in that conversation.
You're right.
It's crazy.
So what about this guy who's P2? What about this guy who's pulling all the points? What about Lando Norris?
Right.
What about McLaren? A rookie move. That is a rookie move, and this is why mistakes get made.
Oh no, it's okay. We're here to hash this stuff out.
This.
And again, we're dealing with the future. And again, we're not even fully halfway through. I was just throwing out an idea. Hey,
I love
next,
it.
Next week we should do this. So yeah, if we want to wax theoretical. Next week's the week to tune in.
Theoretical.
Send in your predictions for next year. We will read each and every one of them.
Put in there. Say, hey, my hashtag predictions. Here's my prediction. Boom, and we will address them on air. And even if they're really out there, because, and this is something that we should all take to the bank.
I'll put on the tinfoil hat. I'll be a believer for a week.
So here's something that's really, really cool, right? If we look at George Russell, Sergio Perez, Oscar Piastri, who are we thinking? Carlos Sainz. 22% of the people still have Carlos Sainz. Logan Sargent, Alex Albon. 49% of the people still have Alex Albon, and he's in negative points.
And here's why. Because he is what everyone can still afford, and they feel better about Alex. And this is a rookie move. They feel better about Alex Albon than they do about Logan Sargent because look at them as drivers.
Yeah.
But that doesn't translate in fantasy. That is why he's so popular there. It's I only have this change left in my pocket, and I don't want Logan Sargent. Take Logan. Save yourself money. Take Logan and get better starting drivers.
Absolutely, because that's a good point. Logan keeps ticking down.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to end up losing money overall with him, but as soon as Max Verstappen ticks up 0.1, if you keep Ferrari or McLaren on your team, McLaren will uptick at least as much, if not more, than Logan Sargent will downtick.
Correct.
Period. So It's a wash. Keep Logan Sargent on there because also, as soon as Logan Sargent, and this is me just pulling from our countryman, he's had a couple bum races, but as soon as he does, like in Japan and in China, he gets you 8 or 9 points. Yeah. And he can do it. And I hate to go ahead and bring up his teammate Alex Albon, but Alex Albon, yes, you're right, he has more double digits. He also has a lot more DNFs. So we've already beaten that horse again. I will monologue about the importance of DNFs anytime if you need a guest monologuist. But all right, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I have nothing else that was burning in my mind. I wanted to get the teams going. I wanted to work out some of that Ferrari versus Mercedes and that McLaren versus Red Bull, because you can listen to all the stuff we just said and come up with the exact opposite conclusion on a lot of it.
Oh no, for sure. And that's the beauty of this format.
Yeah.
So if you are on your commute and you've been listening to us, hope your drive is almost over. If we are just background noise, thanks for listening, and tell people to subscribe. We could always use the help. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers.